Hello and welcome to the Q3 update for Instance Insights. We've been working on the Instance Insights stuff for a long time, kind of rethinking how modern software teams can measure and improve the way they ship into customer environments. So I want to really recap kind of what we've done so far, and then sort of what's new, what's upcoming since the last update back in April, May time, and then talk through kind of what we're looking at next and where we'd love to get feedback from design partners and other customers, prospects, etc. So the story so far, the first thing we shipped was instance detail. This was really a tactical feature. Something's gone wrong. I got to figure out what it was. So the instance detail page is a way to figure out what changes have happened with the instance recently? Has there been recent upgrades, infrastructure changes, app restarts, etc.? Really to try to eliminate that time period of asking customers what happened and spend more time solving their problems, especially as we see a lot of product engineers get pulled into these customer support escalations. Our goal is to help people spend more time building and less time asking, did you do this? Did you do that? So quick details at your fingertips for that. The next one is sort of for sales success, kind of in-depth customer reporting to understand kind of holistic usage across a customer. How many instances, what are the differences between those environments? How long did it take to get this customer up and running? And then the next level is sort of the customer roll-ups for leadership, for executives, for folks who kind of want to get strategic here and be able to get really good at measuring month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter improvements and problem areas in the way the people, process, tools, and the product itself, how you're performing at delivering into customer environments in aggregate. It's really hard to make good decisions about where to focus your efforts, where to invest product time, and where to adjust people and processes without really good data. And historically, when it comes to customer-hosted environments, people just don't have the data. And a lot of us, I know I've been there, shooting from the hip a little bit. If you want to see what really good looks like, we did do a conversation last year with the GitLab team. They have a large distribution team that does a really good job of being strategic and making sure that every change they make is tied to a measurable initiative. We've identified a ton of metrics that we think are important to doing this well. I'm not going to go into depth on all of them, but as an example, things like how fast can you get software installed, how old is your average release across all your customers, how many unique versions are running out in the field that you need to maintain knowledge and documentation and support for. Again, there's a lot of these. Our recommendation has always been pick 3 to 5 or even just one, see if they work. If they don't, toss them out, try another one. This is kind of new ground. We're interested to hear from folks what's working, what's not working, while we iterate our product to make this stuff measurable. So on the adoption metrics, this was something that we shipped maybe around May. But again, implementing some of those key metrics like median age of deployed software. So that's been out, gotten great feedback there. And then doing also an all instances overview, right? If you quickly want to get a sense of your entire customer base, you can just scroll the customers page now and kind of see the state of all the instances. So that's kind of where we're at. Fast forwarding now, we've been hard at work at a couple fun new features. The first of which is notifications, enabling you and your team to catch problems early. So you can subscribe for an individual instance to email or Slack notifications for a variety of different verbosity levels to understand, hey, when an instance goes down or when their infrastructure is upgraded, you can get pinged in Slack, you can get an email so that you can react to things before they become support cases or escalations. The Slack stuff is configured just by a webhook URL, and you can, of course, configure email notifications under your account settings. And I'm not going to go and do a full end-to-end demo here, but there's a great one on our blog if you're interested in seeing that. But here's an example of some of the example messages that you might see via email or via Slack to give you a heads up that things are potentially not going well. The other thing that we're really, really excited about is now in public beta, we'll be posting kind of a more in-depth blog post on this soon, is custom metrics, understanding usage. So people, of course, generally find value in the operational insights of, adoption rates and install success and uptime. But what we heard from a lot of folks is they want to understand product level data and sort of account level data as well. Are people using more and we need to trigger an upsell motion? Are people plateauing or using less over time? Whether it's active users or number of workspaces or repos, depending on this is all product specific, which is why we can't do it automatically. Maybe there's low adoption of a specific feature and a product engineer needs to get in and kind of understand where the gaps are and iterate it. Or even, people are using more and more and you say, okay, you're going to need to spin up more nodes, more instances to meet your scale needs and bring in professional services to help a customer scale that up. So there's a lot of different sort of insights or actionable results that might come out of understanding this product data, and we want to unlock all of that for people shipping into customer environments. Folks were kind of all over the place on where they wanted to see this data, and there's an asterisk on that because we're going to come back to that as we get into the data export update. But essentially, there's a small endpoint that you can consume in cluster to send your custom metrics data to. We've also got some JavaScript code examples and a few other scripts and things that you can steal from. But this is an example of just sending number of active users and maybe number of projects for a fictional application. And essentially, from within your application, you could basically send this JSON payload in, and you would see in the instance detail event history, number of users, number of projects, and you would also see custom metrics. So I will demo that real quickly. We've got our pods here. And we will just run our curl command. Let's see if I can get this right on the first try. Replicated SDK. Data. Num projects. 25. So pulling up this instance real quick. Let's go find it. Here we go. So I'm going to fire off this curl command again. I'm in one of my the idea is that you would instrument this in your application, send it on a schedule. And of course I put it in. I'm going to send it to replicated. Looks like we got a response. Let's see what's here. Okay, num projects 25. There we go. And you'll see also we have here under custom metrics, we have number of projects. So if your application is instrumented to talk to that in-cluster endpoint, then that data will show up in the event stream. And if I scroll down, you can see some other experiments we were doing with sending this data. So anything that we found that the answers to these questions were often in a SQL database in the application. So anything you want to query out and send on a hourly, daily, weekly interval, that is now possible, and then you can get that out via our API, which I will get into in just a minute. Because, so getting the right data to make decisions about your products and your customer relationships, super, super important. And this works for COTS or the replicated SDK if you're using Helm CLI installs, or if you want to have a mix of some folks using COTS, some folks using curl, and some folks using the Helm option. This works in all those cases. The other thing, and I keep saying we'll come back to this, are the improvements to the data export. So again, what we have heard is vendors want to understand everything in instance insights, the kind of the core of adoption, uptime, reliability, conversion, and they also want to be able to understand this everything we enable via custom metrics. And of course, we have this directly in the replicated vendor portal, but what we heard from people is there's a lot of different places this needs to go, and that at a certain level, a lot of this data gets bubbled up to higher level executives who may not necessarily be spending a lot of time in the replicated portal. So in that case, we wanted to make it really easy to get this into other systems like Salesforce, Gainsight, data warehouses, and BI tools. And we found there was a lot of issues with doing that. There was currently a customer CSV export that had some shortcomings, didn't have quite the level of detail that I think people needed, and there were some JSON endpoints, none of which really was perfect for doing this sort of regular routine scraping and export and transformation work. So the first thing we've done is created a new CSV for instances. So rather than aggregating data across instances at a customer level, you can now get the data for each individual instance. And we've added a ton of fields here. I'll demo kind of where you can get this, but I'm really excited to get this in people's hands and see what y'all think of it and continue to iterate that one. The other one is our JSON export. There wasn't really a clear really good endpoint for doing this, so we're creating a dedicated API endpoint or family of endpoints specifically designed for data export. So rather than just kind of piggybacking on the endpoints that are used in the web UI and the web app, we're creating purpose-built APIs for this. So you can see some of these existing endpoints, they're kind of nested and they have this graph structure, and there's all this HAL kind of API, meta API in here. So we're going to clean that up. So really quickly, and then what we'll also look at is just some example analysis, having this CSV of some of the things you can do. So I'm going to pull up the customers page here. I will download a CSV. So again, the customers report is the same thing we've always had. A lot of folks are using that now to power BI systems. The instances report is the new one, and I already have one of these downloaded, so I'm just going to pull it up here, and I've hidden a couple columns, but as you can see, you get COTS versions, cloud provider info, air gap data, Kubernetes version, what kind of client it is. You'll also have, this version doesn't have it, but all your custom metrics and all your entitlements as well, all kind of destructured onto the single row. And then, of course, all the customer details, like overall, when was the customer active, when does the license expire, things like that. So that's super exciting. And then the other thing we've built is kind of a toy Python notebook. Shout out to the replicated data team for taking some time to dig into this data. Of course, we have this reporting in our product, but we wanted to kind of demonstrate what might be possible if you wanted to pull this into an analytics environment. This is pretty kind of basic stuff, but being able to understand, okay, how many instances do I have on each version of my app? How many instances do I have running across different versions of Kubernetes? And even getting some more interesting things like a Kaplan-Meier analysis of, how often on average from customer creation does it take to actually get an instance installed? Some of these instances, the license gets created and the instance doesn't get launched for 100 days. So doing a little bit deeper analysis and trying to find insights on, again, how you're doing at an overall level. We want to, rather than having you all wait for us to build each and every kind of new chart in the dashboard, we want to open up this data to everyone so that y'all can pull from it what you need. Cool, that's data export. Again, getting that data in front of the people who need to see it so that they can make the right decisions. What's next? Data export, custom metrics, these are early. We're looking for more feedback. If you have thoughts, ideas, you want to try this out, they're ready to go. So reach out to us in the vendor portal, file a feature request, or find us in the community. There's a lot of options there. Want to make some improvements to notifications, different types, and making things a little more tunable to help with a little bit of noise control. I know there's some instances that are flapping up and down out in the field, which is valuable to know that that's happening, but probably not valuable to be reminded of it every 3 hours. We still have kind of on the back burner for a while, but are really excited to get back to building telemetry for air gap and giving you all this same information for what are probably your most important, most strategic customers, which are the ones who are running your route totally offline with no internet access. And there's more key metrics that we want to tackle, things like time to install and install success rate, things like conversion rates and churn rates, project tracking for installations. There's a ton of these we talked about back in April. I won't go through them in detail, but there's a lot of different things we want to try to surface for you. So no matter what role you're in, product engineering, support, sales, success, services, and more, there is probably something in here for you. So check it out, give it a spin, give us a holler, and thanks for listening. Peace.